Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this slightly impromptu stream after having watched the first two episodes of the new Hawkeye series on Disney Plus. I am your host, Scribelight. It is Thanksgiving Eve, so happy Thanksgiving in preparation for those of you out there who are in the United States or otherwise celebrate the day. So this is the latest Disney Plus Marvel series. And as I have effectively done for the previous ones, except for WandaVision, because I got too late to the game to that one, or I was too taken in by the novelty of a Marvel TV series before I got it in my head to say something about it. So how's this one? Well, I will say that thus far it has kept to the tradition of the Disney Plus shows thus far, except for WandaVision, wherein the title character of the series is the least seen or important character in the series so far. Though it's titled Hawkeye, which you would think would be Jeremy Renner's character, he's not in it all that much so far. We're only 2 episodes in of, I think, 6 or 8 episodes or something, so who knows what'll happen next, but let's go over what does happen a little bit. So we begin with a, flashback to 2012. Can you believe it's been that long already? To the attack on New York. Well, those of us who are nerds know it's the attack on New York, but we don't quite have it happen yet. We are introduced to young Kate Bishop and her mother, played by Vera Farmiga. I'm probably mispronouncing that. And her father, played by, I have no idea. Mom and dad are fighting, and Kate Bishop is overhearing them. It sounds like they're going to have to sell the penthouse. They're in some kind of financial distress. The economy's bad. Things are going badly for the Bishop family. And Kate is overhearing it all. And then they fight. Dad goes upstairs to assure his daughter that everything's okay after they get a notion that she's overhearing them from noise upstairs. And he gives her a little pep talk. He says, Mommy said things don't fall from the sky just before the attack on New York. And so, they have a little father-daughter powwow. Everything will be okay. Mom tries to be cool, tries to entertain her daughter. Yeah. And then daughter goes upstairs to her room to get something. And then as she's getting something, I think it's pizza or whatever, suddenly there's an explosion and things flying around outside. Oh my God, it's the attack on New York. The Chitauri are attacking. Their house gets blown up. Oh my gosh. And that looks like the shot from, see, when I saw that, it reminded me of the shot from the Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters, when Dana Barrett's apartment has been blown up by the ghosts and everything. And you got that close-up of her standing on the balcony. That's what that reminded me of. Anyway, so young Kate Bishop is out on the little balcony of her blown-up apartment, and she's watching all the action from her apartment. And specifically, she sees, and I don't have it here right in front of me, she sees Hawkeye doing his whole blowing up the Chitauri and then jumping off of the roof and swinging down into the building. That famous scene of Hawkeye jumping off a building, looking up, shooting his arrow, and all that good stuff. So then Mom comes and saves little Kate Bishop from the disaster. Where's Daddy? Where's Daddy? Well, Daddy's dead. Daddy's dead. And Kate tells her mother that she needs a bow and arrow because she's going to protect Mom from this happening to her. And she was inspired by Hawkeye. It's like, whatever you need, I'm here for you. And if I can get this thing to cooperate. I need a bow and arrow. Okay, and then we get into the intro. Now, so far, nothing untoward. We get a little backstory. And credit where credit is due. The intro montage here, the little sequence, does something that I kind of appreciated from the Incredible Hulk movie. And that is they use the opening credits to tell the backstory. They didn't need to spend a whole lot of time giving exposition as to what happened in the ensuing time, because the backstory is told in the credit sequence. That was something they did in the original, not the original, but I mean the pre-Mark Ruffalo Incredible Hulk movie, where they gave Hulk's origin story basically in a montage in the credit sequence, rather than wasting time retelling it again in the movie itself. So in that sense, I kind of appreciated that. It told it through images as to what the ensuing years involved, without having to knock us over the head with exposition. Thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Oh boy, more Marvel sludge coming from the pipe. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Pardon me while I take a swig there. All right. So in this opening credit sequence, we see young Kate Bishop practicing her archery skills and gradually getting better and better, and spending time with her mother and winning a bunch of awards for archery and martial arts and fencing and more martial arts. And she gets better and better. Oh, and gymnastics. Yes. And then winning awards and medals for fencing. And then we get into Hawkeye. And then she's like a really good archer. And, you know, Mary suing a little bit, that's fine. But, you know, the backstory justifies it to a certain extent. And okay, sure, fine. All right, that's fine. And so we arrive at this, I believe it's a private college or something to that effect. Kate Bishop is now in her late teens, early 20s, something like that. Presuming this is taking place in 2012, and she was like, what, 5 or 6 or something at the time of the attack on New York. That would put her at like 17, maybe 18, there's-abouts. I'm guessing. I have no idea of the actual age of the actress playing Kate Bishop, but that's, I guess, what I'm assumed to be thinking. Anyway, so at this private college, Kate Bishop shows off her sort of cat burglar skills. She's climbing up the side of a building, and she's got her bow and arrow, and she's already got that sort of purple motif going on with her outfits, which is reminiscent of Hawkeye's traditional color scheme. And she scales the top of this building, and she gets her bow and arrow ready, and then she calls her friend. And I saw Greer, and the first thing I thought of was there's a character in Marvel Comics. Is it Tigra? I think it's Tigra, who her real name is Greer, but it's spelled differently. So I thought that this was a nod to that character. I don't think it is, or if it is, it's a very obscure one, deep cut, or I'm just being a total nerd. Anyway, so Kate Bishop is going to do this stunt, this prank to impress her friends or something from this building that she's at, and it deals with this clock tower. And so she gets out her trick arrow, which is an arrow with a tennis ball at the end. And the whole point is to try to make the bell ring using her arrow from that building, I guess. Okay, so she fires her trick arrow at the bell and it doesn't do anything. It just thunks off of it and bounces off. Okay. Well, then she cobbles together a different trick arrow, this one with a little catch on it. And then she fires this arrow and it catches the rope that rings the bell. And it rings the bell. And the bell is ringing. Yay, what a prank. What a stunt. Yay. And then something starts to happen. Oh, yeah. The bell tower falls apart because the bell is knocked loose by being rung with a trick arrow and then proceeds to demolish and crash through the clock tower. Because the bell of the college, which is attached to a clock, which has a rope attached to it, which seems like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for how a clock tower is supposed to work. But anyway, with one tug of the rope, the bell collapses and destroys the tower. So this is played obviously for comedy. You can see this coming a mile away if you've watched a movie in your life. And okay, what does this tell us about the character? Well, she's a good archer. She can aim at a target from a long distance and hit it. She can scale buildings. Okay. She comes prepared with her pre-made equipment for arrows and things. And she's also reckless and adventurous and stuff. Okay. All right. I didn't find it particularly funny. Like I say, it's played up for comedy. It doesn't, again, and then just as a preamble for anything else I say, just because something doesn't particularly hit my funny bone doesn't mean it won't someone else's. This is just my opinion. Anyway, so we find out these elements of this character, and then we jump to, I don't know, that same day or a few days in the future, and it's getting close to Christmas. From the comments made later, we are about approximately a week away from Christmas at this point, approximately. And we light upon a Broadway show of Rogers the Musical. A timeless story of a timeless hero captures the heart of a hero. This is kind of funny. If you think about Marvel Broadway stage shows, if you're ever curious about a particular disaster in that regard, look up the backstory on Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. Yes, if you do not know, that is the name of attempted, I mean, it wasn't attempted, it actually was done, a Spider-Man Broadway show, and the disaster that it was for everyone who donated to it or invested in it or even acted in it. But yeah, so that's what this reminded me of. Anyway, so it's a gala stage show of the attack on New York, but done with, song and dance and loosely costumed characters of all of the Avengers. And it's goofy, it's silly. It's exactly what you might expect from a cash-in Broadway play, show, musical, whatever, of something. There are several references in the lyrics that are, to me, things that, would they be publicly known? I can't, fall upon the exact frames in the subtitles here to get those things, but several comments, several references that I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I suppose one or more of the Avengers might have said something about this after the events, but some of these things seem like a little too meta, even for a show like this. Anyway, so for whatever reason, Clint Barton and his kids are in the audience, and Clint Barton starts to have, without us seeing it, and I kind of appreciated this, we get the sensation very quickly, especially when there's the solo dance routine by the Black Widow dancer, where Clint is having obvious, more or less, post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, if you'll recall from the movies, he traveled to another planet in order to capture a magical stone, and in the process had to effectively watch his best friend sacrifice herself on an altar on an alien planet to save the world. And this is also, and that happened after Clint Barton had gone on a one-man murder spree for the better part of 5 years after Thanos snapped everybody away because his own family disappeared, and in his despair, and in order to feel like he was doing some good in the world, he took on the mantle of the character Ronan and went around being all ninja Punisher on the underworld. So Clint Barton has some baggage at this point. He has multiple murders on his case, let's say, as well as the death of his best friend, as well as being hailed as a hero for saving the world, if not New York in this particular instance. And apparently, as we find out shortly, because the name Ronan was never mentioned in the Endgame film. Anybody who's read the comic books will have known what the name of the persona that Clint Barton was taking on was in Endgame. But this show is the first time that, as far as I know, the name Ronan is mentioned. But nobody knows who Ronan was. The Ronan character, the Ronan vigilante, was a known quantity back in the day, but nobody knows his identity. Okay, keep that in mind. Nobody knows who the Ronan was. Anyway, so Clint kind of gets all choked up and kind of PTSD'd watching this. We also learn that Clint is also now hearing impaired because he has a hearing aid. And this is as a consequence of his various battles and being just a human. A lot of the elements of this story are taken from the Matt Fraction comic series on Hawkeye. And I say elements, not story, because in a lot of ways they have switched out Hawkeye for Kate Bishop in a lot of the story beats and circumstances. It's been a long time since I read that comic book series. But the little bits and pieces they've shown so far, they're just sort of taking parts of it, but they're not retelling it. Anyway, so then Clint just really can't take watching this weird recitation of traumatic events for him, as well as being reminded of a whole bunch of other stuff. And so he goes off to the bathroom to get some air, I guess, or to relieve himself. And then a super fan asks him for a selfie. My kids would love it. And Hawkeye's like, no, thank you. Not right now. And then he goes outside for some real air. And then his daughter comes out to check on him. And the rest of his kids come out to check on him. And they're like, yeah, this is too much. Let's get out of here. Now, the entire time I'm thinking, where's Mom? Why isn't Mom with them? We get a little explanation for that later, but it still seems pretty thin. But Mom isn't there. So anyway, then we jump back to Kate Bishop. And she is arriving at back at home, some penthouse suite kind of thing. Because even though her parents were in financial distress back in 2012, seemingly since that time, the fortunes have turned again. And now she's still rich. She's still, her mother is in still good stead. And so she's helping her mother get ready for a party. And it is mentioned that, well, let's see. So they talk about the fact that Kate destroyed a clock tower and Mom's not going to be paying for this, or she will be paying for this. I can't remember quite. But as punishment, she's going to cancel all her credit cards. Oh gosh. Yeah. So Mom's going to have to pay for the damage she's done. So Mom's super wealthy, I guess. And she chides her daughter. She says, rich people think they're invincible. Sorry, young people and rich. She said something like young people and rich people both think they're invincible. And you've always been both. And so please don't go looking for trouble. You get that from your father, you know. Uh-huh. Yeah, because the 3 seconds we saw of Dad at the beginning of this series really told me that Dad was a big adventurous risk taker. Maybe I missed something. Anyway, so here's the thing. Mom says they're going off to a party, or Mom's going off to a party, and Mom wants Kate to come with her. And Mom says, would you mind putting on that red dress in your bedroom and coming with me tonight? And Kate's like, okay, Mom. Okay. And by the way, here's a new medal I got for the martial art championship. And Mom's like, oh, that's great, dear. Wow. Like, okay. Just happened to get this thing. Okay. And Mom's not that impressed, I guess. So anyway, there's obviously some tension between her and her mother because Kate's a troublemaker and her mom's all sort of, I'm not quite sure what her mom is. I have a feeling that Mom is the secret villain behind everything. I don't know that for a fact, but she is so underplayed and in these first 2 episodes, seemingly on the periphery of everything. There's obviously something more going on there. Anyway, we jump back to Hawkeye because, you know, this show is called Hawkeye. And Hawkeye is having dinner with his family, except his wife, who isn't there. So they're talking, his 3 kids and him, you know, that he's taking care of in New York for whatever reason. And they're talking and they're talking. And, oh, yeah, he loves his kids and he cares about his kids. And as you remember, Hawkeye had 5 years where he thought his family was dead and never coming back. His entire family was gone. How is that psychological trauma? affecting him? I'm not sure. Like I said, in the theater, we saw a little bit of it. We get instances of it, but all the same, I'm like, is this really the story that should be told right now? Because I'll jump ahead a little bit. I honestly think that this story should have been Hawkeye living away from his family. I honestly think that, I mean, the family should be present in the story, but I would have thought that a better story would have been Hawkeye having to work his way back into a normal life after spending 5 years as a murderous vigilante and honestly believing and having no reason to think otherwise that his entire family was dead and never coming back, and having lost his best friend in what amounted to a suicide pact. This story should have been about Hawkeye becoming human again, but that's not what this story's about. Anyway, so Hawkeye's with his kids at dinner, and they're eating dinner, and they're joking around, and they're talking and stuff. And then they call mom, and mom's at home back in, I forget where mom and their house is. It's somewhere in the rural something or other. It was in Age of Ultron, and I don't remember. But anyway, so mom is at home getting Christmas ready, and Hawkeye is with the kids in New York so that he can have some bonding time with them. Okay. So they're just spending sort of like a pre-Christmas outing together as father and children in New York, while mom stays home and does the trimmings to the tree. I thought that mom would have had like some kind of business commitment or something that made more sense as to why she wasn't joining them. But unless I've missed something, and it's entirely possible, they don't really give us a reason as to why, other than just he needs some time with his kids. And if that ties into his whole, like, having lost them for 5 years and thinking that they were dead, okay. But they don't really. Okay, anyway. So we don't get much information on that. Anyway, so they're having dinner. This is a long scene. And then the either the owner or the waiter of the place or whatever just comps them the meal. And he says, thank you. The meal's on the house. You saved the city. We thank you. And they awkwardly accept the gift. Okay. Now, how long did that scene last? Let's see. It lasted approximately 22. Yeah, about 3 minutes straight, thereabouts. And what did we learn? Mom's not there, and he's with his kids. Okay. So then we jump over to the party with Kate's mom and this guy. And you might recognize this guy as Lalo from the Better Call Saul TV series, which I hope gets its, series continued after the health issues that the guy whose name I suddenly forget, who plays Saul Goodman. I suddenly forget his name. He had a heart issue on the set, and they had to stall production. But anyway, so Lalo here, he plays Jack, or in the comic books, Jacques Descaine, something like that. Anyway, he is secretly the character known as the Swordsman, who is a Marvel comic books character. Sometimes an Avenger, but basically he's really good at swordplay. That's why they call him the Swordsman, if you can believe it. Anyway, so he is the boyfriend of Kate's mother. He's referred to as Jack. In the comic books, he's Jacques. Anyway, so Kate is there, and look at that lovely red dress that Kate is wearing. Oh, that's right. She's not wearing a lovely red dress. She's wearing a dark suit. So is this just reflective of Kate's rebellious nature? Does she just have a different fashion sense than her mother? No. This suit is very useful. Very, very accidentally, coincidentally useful in short order. Anyway, old man comes up to her and says, hi, I'm Armand Descaine, however you pronounce that. And don't you remember me? You used to come to my house. when you were a kid. And she's like, oh, yes, I remember you. So this guy, who is the relation of Jack, this family has been associated with Kate Bishop's family for many years. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Anyway, so they have some little back and forth, and Grandpa here lets the cat out of the bag to Kate about the wedding. What wedding? Well, the wedding between Mom and Jack. Mom and Jack are getting married. Mom didn't tell Kate. Why didn't she tell Kate? I don't know. Just reasons. Mom's a jerk, I guess. Yeah. So anyway, she finds out that her mom's going to get married to this guy in a short period of time, I guess. And yeah. So, and then we have tiny little Armand. So this guy's named Armand and the old guy's named Armand, and they're all Armands and Duquesnes. And the whole Armand Duquesne or Duchesne or whatever you want to call it, that whole character thing is part of the Marvel Comics universe. They switch the character names around for different characters. And anyway, it's all deep cut comic book stuff, which doesn't really apply here because they've changed the characters so much that it really doesn't matter, even if you knew who they were. Anyway, so then Kate watches as goes up to her mother and asks about the wedding. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry you found out this way. Oh, I'm sorry. And everything will be okay. And then Kate just can't take it. She needs some air. She goes outside. And as she's getting some air, she is encountered by this dog, this one-eyed dog, just out of nowhere. Okay. And she, talks to the dog for a second, and then the dog goes away, and Kate goes back up into the party. And she walks over and overhears Grandpa arguing with Mom about some kind of business transaction or something. And Kate's like, WTF? What's going on? And he says, I've got powerful friends too, the kind you don't want to mess with. Ooh, what's going on? Mom's involved in some stuff, yo. Anyway, so Kate confronts Mom as she comes around the corner. He's like, Mom, what was that about? Is that guy threatening you? And Mom plays dumb. She's just like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe, sort of, I'm not sure. Whatever. And Kate's like, huh? Because this makes sense. So then Kate decides to track down Jack. Because Jack is excusing himself and kind of walking out on everything. And Kate's like suspicious. So she's following Jack because something's going on with the whole Duquesne family or something. So Kate follows him through the kitchen. And amazingly enough, let's see if I can get it here. Amazingly enough, come on. No, get to the frame that I want. Why is this so difficult? There we go. Amazingly enough, the wait staff of this party just all happen to be wearing dark suits and ties. Isn't that amazing? I mean, what are the odds that Kate Bishop, who had a red dress ready to wear from her mother to this party, would just decide, on a lark to wear nothing but a totally black suit with a tie that just happened to be the exact same makeup and shade of the wait staff's outfits at this party. Yeah. So anyway, suddenly she can then pose as a waitress in the little party, and she follows everybody down to a secret basement in the wine cellar where a whole bunch of very important looking people are gathering up, and they're all sitting down for what is obviously an auction. And Kate Bishop oversees as Jack and Grandpa here sit down next to each other and get ready to participate in the auction. And they kind of have some back and forth to them. Jack here makes a joke about the inheritance and everything, and it's going to be an interesting evening and everything. Okay, so then the auctioneer His first item is a Triceratops skull, and somebody pays 2 million something for it. And he says, and remember, this is not for public display, and don't tell anybody where you got it. Ooh, an illegal elitist auction taking place in a wine cellar at a party that's so secret that this girl just walks in. Great security. Anyway, so she gets confronted by actual waiter guy saying, like, who are you? What are you doing here? And she says, well, Gary sent me. So, if you want to go talk to Gary about it, you go ahead. And the guy's like, okay. Yeah, Gary told me to work here. And the guy's like, if you say so. And so she says, so maybe if you want to bother Gary. And so she turns back. And then she watches as the Triceratops, I keep on saying Tyrannosaurus Rex, the Triceratops skull is sold for $2.7 million. Oh my gosh, this is high stakes, secret, illegal black market auction going on here. And let's see. And so she waits there a second, and they're all laughing at the jokes about how illegal this is. And then this guy walks up and says, what's your name? And she's like, well, you don't even know my name. I'll admit, this was a little funny. This is not going to work out. I quit. And here's the thing. Here's the really funny part. The guy's name is actually Gary. He says, I'm Gary. She totally guessed, and she just happened to be right. The guy running security, or sorry, not security. What's security? No, running the wait staff is named Gary. So she says, I quit. This was kind of funny for about 10 seconds. And then she walks off and hides amongst the wine bottles. And as she hides amongst the wine bottles, she comes to a door and she overhears some Russians talking. And she sees a bunch of Russian guys getting guns ready. Like, uh-oh, what's going on here? Now, how did these Russian guys get into the wine cellar? How did they make it into the party and down to the wine cellar with automatic weapons? I don't know. They just did. Because the super secret black market auction of super duper rich people has awesome security. Which is funny because we find out in short order that Kate Bishop's mother runs a company called Bishop Security. Is there a connection? Well, I'm only 2 episodes in, so I don't know. Anyway, so Kate overhears these Russian guys. She knows something is coming. And then on the auction block comes a very special item. An item recovered from the ruins of the Avengers compound. Do you remember the Avengers compound that was destroyed in Endgame in the fight with Thanos? Well, recovered in the Avengers compound rubble, somehow, was this very special sword. And what is this special sword? Well, this happens to be the Sword of Ronan. It's a special sword that can collapse back into its hilt. And it goes on the auction block. And then Jack and Grandpa start a bidding war back and forth with each other. And Grandpa's like, you don't have that kind of money. And Jack's like, yeah, but the inheritance does. Okay. So anyway, they start betting, or bidding, I should say. And it gradually goes up to like $500,000 or something. In the meantime, the Russians, exiting their little planning alcove here in the storage room where nobody saw them or noticed them or heard them except for Kate Bishop, exit the room. And Kate Bishop is a total stealth expert by just hiding behind a window door. And of course, the Russians don't notice her and they just walk on by. Okay. And so, the price for the sword goes up to $500,000. And Jack, unfortunately, has to concede. He can't go that high, even though he was betting with money that wasn't his to begin with. Now he's gone too far. And Grandpa has won the bid. And they're like, oh my gosh. And let's see, do I get to that point? Okay, let me jump back to Mom. And Mom doesn't know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on. Oh, but everything happens so quick. I got to find the right frames. Everything happens so fast. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So I can't find the right frame, unfortunately. But just before this explosion you're seeing here, the next item on the auction block was a box that contained the outfit, the entire costume of Ronan. The auctioneer mentioned in the course of this that no one knows the true identity of Ronan. And I have a question. If Ronan's sword and Ronan's entire outfit was found in the rubble of the Avengers compound, that somehow this illegal auction organization found that none of the Avengers would have scoured or recovered in the meantime. But anyway, if all of Ronan's gear was found in the Avengers compound, why wouldn't someone at least possibly suspect that an Avenger was Ronan? Not knowing which one, per se, but that an Avenger had been Ronan. Their identity is still unknown. Okay, anyway, so there's this explosion and the wall blows open. And why does it blow open? I don't know. It just does. And no one dies. And then more Russians come in from the hole in the wall. What about the Russians that were already in the building? What was the point of having the Russians already in the wine cellar if you're just going to bust through and have more Russians come in? I don't know. It was hard for me to tell. And again, maybe I missed it, but the Russians that were already present are redundant. So anyway, there's this explosion and these Russians come in and they're looking for the watch. They're not there for the sword. They're not there for the costume. They're not there for the Triceratops skull. One of the guys there says, we need to find the watch. I'm like, okay, the watch. Anyway, in the chaos, Jack grabs the Ronin sword, collapses it down into its handle and steals it. And he just kind of takes off. Kate is just laying there and all scared and stuff as the Russians come in and start threatening people and everything. And so she thinks fast and she sees the Ronin outfit there just laying on the ground. And so she decides to, can I get that frame? That one frame. Apparently I can't. Anyway, so she starts putting on the costume. I guess over her suit. Does that make sense? And then we cut back to, I guess this is Russian guy loading a truck with the ill-gotten gains of the people busting through the wall, even though they were looking for a very specific item, an item I'm guessing was supposed to be at the auction. And yeah, so he's out there doing that. We have to set that up, but there's can I find this is the problem with this. I can't get onto a specific frame. There is a point at which where the guy loading the truck finds the watch they're looking for. It just happened to be in some of the stuff they stole. So they got what they came for, I guess. And then the Russians are threatening all the people. And then Kate Bishop, as Ronan, starts kicking ass all over the place. And Mom is suddenly worried because the whole building shook when the explosion happened. And so Mom's like, where's Kate? Where's Kate? Where's Jack? Where's Kate? And so Ronan Kate starts beating up the Tracksuit Mafia, a set of characters and organization from the Matt Fraction Hawkeye comic book series, a bunch of Russians in tracksuits who like to say bro a lot. It's funny in the comic book series. To me, it doesn't quite translate into the TV series. But anyway, so Kate does super duper kung fu on everybody using bottles because she doesn't have weapons and beating up grown men all by herself. Remember, 17/18-year-old girl taking on grown men with her martial arts action kung fu. Impossible? No. Unlikely, given the amount of, damage that she takes. I mean, she gets hit several times. I'll give them that. They didn't make it like totally God mode for Kate Bishop in this, But at the same time, if you're going to be showing us characters that are not super powered, but you show them taking damage that would otherwise break ribs or leave serious injuries on a person over and over again, and then they just kind of walk away from those things. Yeah, these people aren't Asgardians. And, muscle mass matters. Anyway, so Kate Bishop beats up all the Russians all the time and then escapes. And yeah, there we go. Yeah, the guy found the watch. What does this watch do? What does it have to do with anything? I don't know. I tried to think in my comic book brain, do I know of anything about some kind of special watch in the grand canon of Marvel? If there is, I don't know it. If that number is significant, I don't know it. I assume it's some kind of Tony Stark Tech thing, or there's some kind of message in it, or it has some kind of information embedded in it. Anyway, it is a watch recovered from the Avengers compound. So I got to wonder, like, where did all this stuff come from? I mean, did the Avengers just let some opportunistic scavengers go through their stuff after the battle with Thanos or something? Is this kind of like a play off of what the Vulture was doing in Homecoming, where they were just kind of grifting off of the remnants of the Chitauri attack and all that? I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever be explained to us, but magically this underground auction just happens to have access to a whole bunch of Avengers artifacts in perfect condition from a giant war zone after the battle with Thanos. So anyway, they found the watch, and then the dog attacks the guy at the truck. Remember the dog? Remember the one-eyed dog from earlier that just happened to show up? And now he's attacking this Russian guy. Why is he attacking the Russian guy? I don't know. What does it do for anybody? I don't know. As far as I can tell, he doesn't like get the watch away from the Russian guy. He just knocks the Russian guy over. And then Kate, seeing this guy kicking this dog, chases after the dog and says, wait, wait, wait. Chasing after the dog. Wait, 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 wait. And the dog runs into traffic because, dogs, I guess. And Kate runs after the dog, and she does some super cool ninja moves and saves the dog, while one of the tracksuit mafia guys sees her, takes off his mask for some reason, because, that's what masked criminals doing major robberies do after explosions and things. Shows his face. And yeah, she had done some ninja stuff to like slide and save the dog from being hit by a car. And then Russian guy runs off. And then everybody at the party is lined up outside. And honestly, that looks like a very small number of people for the party we saw. But anyway, so then we cut back to Hawkeye. You remember Hawkeye? You remember Hawkeye? You remember the guy who's the show's named after? Yeah, well, Hawkeye's back with his family. And they're just kind of sitting around and they're watching the news. And then all of a sudden the report comes up about the explosion and the masked vigilante that had been sighted. The Ronan had been sighted at the scene. And Clint's like, oh, what the hell is that? And then he has a flashback to his scenes from Endgame. So we can get some production value out of this by just showing stuff from another movie. And just to remind the audience, Clint used to be Ronan. Now I see somebody in that costume. And he's like, I can't abide that. That's not good. And so Kate Bishop goes back to her apartment, which just happens to be effectively Hawkeye's apartment from the comic book series, because Kate Bishop has swapped places in the narrative with Hawkeye, if you can believe it. And she brought the dog with her because the dog just comes with her, because we have to have the dog because the dog's cute, right? Pizza Dog or Lucky, he's just there. So she keeps the costume on. She feeds pizza to Pizza Dog because that's what you do. And then after the explosion at the party, after fighting a whole bunch of Russian guys and almost getting killed, after almost getting hit by a car, after running through the streets, she decides first thing she has to do after putting the costume on and leaving the costume on after getting home is she needs to find out what Jack is up to. Right. She has to find out right now what mom's fiance is up to. So, oh, sorry. Well, okay. I misspoke because I got confused as to what was going on. She has to find out what's up with Armand. So after the Russians blow up the place, after Armand obviously isn't in on the thing because he was blown up too, or at least injured in the process, she's going to go check up on Grandpa. Sorry. So she looks up where Armand lives on Google Maps because I guess that's just where you go for that information. Anyway, so she leaves with the costume still on and then runs through the streets of New York in the costume still. And then cat burglars her way into the estate of Armand Deschain. And she climbs in the window and she stalks around in the house. And she finds, this is important for later, I guess, he has a bowl of candy, a bowl of butterscotch candy with his name monogrammed on the candy. Now, I want you to remember this for a moment because the show really wants you to remember this. I also want you to remember this candy is in the home of Armand Deschain. Jack, the fiance of Kate's mom, is Jack Deschain. Right? Family members here. Just remember that bit for a moment because it'll become weirdly relevant later. Anyway, so Kate starts talking through the house some more because when you want to find out what's going on with Grandpa, that's the thing you do. And she comes across Grandpa's dead body. Oh my God. He has died of some kind of stab wound. Oh my gosh. And Kate comes upon this and she touches the body. And then the housekeeper shows up and Kate runs out of the place. And she's like, oh my gosh, I just found a dead body. Now what? And then the Russian guys somehow find her, corner her, box her in, and now we have a big fight again with her and the Russian guys. And look, here's the guy from Van Helsing. If you guys have ever watched the TV series Van Helsing, I am struggling to remember the character's name at this point, but I remember this guy as initially a super vampire, but later a good guy from the Van Helsing TV series. So I was happy to see him just because I like him as an actor and a character in that show. He doesn't have a whole lot to do in this show so far. But anyway, so then we have another knockdown, drag-out fight between Kate Bishop and the bros as they fight each other against cars and stuff. And then she locks herself inside of a car. And just as the Russians are about to grab her out of the car, all the Russians are beaten up and waylaid and taken down by who else? But if you can believe it, it's get to the right frame here. It's Hawkeye. Yes, Hawkeye saved her. Because Hawkeye knew that Kate was going to a specific address or something. Remember, nobody knew where granted, she was running through the streets apparently in ninja costume from her apartment to Grandpa's house. So maybe that. But anyway, Hawkeye takes off her mask and is like, who the hell are you? And that's where we cut for that episode. Okay, so far it's been the Kate Bishop show starring Kate Bishop with, also appearing Hawkeye. All right. Well, now while I break before I get to the next episode, let me say some hellos because I haven't actually done that yet, really. Shady Grin, Random American, Robert Pincus, Mike Savage, Luke Skywalker 2, Hate Camel, Atheist Icon, GB, Decode, Rick Ashbringer, The Useless Rebel, and Pie Guy 07. Good afternoon to you all. Okay, well, that was episode 1. So now I got to click off of this screen and I have to share the next one so that we can get on with episode 2. Let's get on with episode 2. So let me get past all the rehash of the previous episode. Yes, we know about that. We know about that. Yes, the opening. Okay, so we go right back to the alley where Hawkeye's like, "Who the hell are you?" And she's like, "You're Hawkeye." He's like, "Who the hell are you?" And she's like, "I'm Kate Bishop." And he says, "You're a kid." And he's right. She's a kid. So he's like, "We got to get out of here because the Russian guys will come back or something." And we get the Hawkeye intro, which is very brief. Okay, so then Kate Bishop starts walking along the street with Hawkeye, and she starts like quizzing him, for information on his methods and his tactics. You're constantly looking for things that are suspicious or weird, right? And he's like, "Yeah, uh-huh." And so they go back to her apartment, and Pizza Dog is still there, having torn up pizza box, and I think that's a book or something because, yay, Pizza Dog. I don't have a problem with Pizza Dog as a concept. I just keep thinking, why Pizza Dog? The dog just shows up, suddenly becomes relevant to the Russian fight, and Kate just had to chase after and save the dog because reasons, and now the dog is part of the story. If you want to see a much higher quality telling of a story about Hawkeye, actually go read the Matt Fraction comic book series. It's not for everybody, but it's entertaining to a certain extent, and it's a hell of a lot better than this. Heck of a lot better. Anyway, so Hawkeye starts, quizzing her on where did you get that suit and what's going on and why are you wearing that? And I'm not going to tell you that I'm the one that used to wear this suit, except I'm not going to tell you why I'm so frantic to get this suit back and get it off the street because I just need to. Oh, she's 22. I must have missed that part. She's 22. It's 2012. Oh, okay. All right. She's 22. Anyway, so they commiserate over stuff and her basically telling him, you're my hero and you inspire me. And she's like, well, who are those guys? And he says, the Tracksuit Mafia. And she goes, that's a little bit on the nose, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, well, anyway. So apparently Hawkeye in his Ronan days fought and conceivably murdered a whole bunch of people from a whole bunch of different underworld organizations, the Tracksuit Mafia being one of them. And the Tracksuit Mafia has a history with Ronan, and so they're no big fan of Ronan. So when they see Ronan, obviously they got to take down Ronan. They somehow don't notice that this isn't Ronan because the person in the costume is decidedly not a man. But anyway, and obviously no one could be wearing a replica of that outfit, because if Ronan is a known quantity in the public where the newscaster is saying no one's seen Ronan in all this time, no one could be cosplaying as Ronan, right? In all this time, no one has. Anyway, so they commiserate a little bit. Hawkeye gives her a little bit of lowdown on some of the enemies that Ronan made. And she never seems to ask, like, how do you know all this stuff? Because as you recall, Ronan's identity is a total secret. Anyway, so then all of a sudden, firebombs start coming in the apartment because the Tracksuit Mafia is outside. And he's like, how the heck did they find you? And she's like, oh, well, I guess I did stop by here before I left for the old man's apartment, and I guess my name's on the buzzer. Because the guys outside are literally yelling Kate Bishop. So they throw Molotov cocktails into her apartment, and Hawkeye throws one back at them, and then the sprinklers go off, And then the suit, the Ronan suit, of which there is no other copy or representation or replica in the world. The Ronan suit is sitting there in the middle of the fire in the backpack. And they can't get to it because of the fire. And Hawkeye's only concern is getting that costume back, so nobody else can wear it. Anyway, so the Russians are waiting for them to come out while they escape out the side. And so they need to find a safe place to stay and figure out what they're going to do next and get their wounds attended to. So they go to a pharmacy and pick up some stuff, and they're all talking the whole time. And she keeps asking him about Avengers stuff, and he keeps telling her, you know, there's no easy out here. She's like, do we have a safe house at Avengers Tower? And he's like, no, Tony sold that a few years ago, referring to the events in Homecoming, if you'll recall. Anyway, Pizza Dog is still with them because why not? And so they keep having like little quips at each other. Now, there's a lot of banter between these two characters that never landed for me. Again, maybe I'm just jaded, but it never landed. I never felt any chemistry between these two characters. Maybe that will grow as time goes on, but it certainly wasn't instant karma. So anyway, Kate knows of a place to go. She has the address of a friend, Moira Brandon. I don't know if that is some kind of deep cut reference to a comic book character, but anyway, so it's some kind of family friend that she knows isn't there, and she's going to get into this house, by the way. Also, I think I skipped over it in the first episode because, like I say, I can't land on specific frames or anything. Kate is also a good, or at least a practiced lockpick. Fortunately, they didn't show her like picking the lock of the door on the building at the college. That's why she had to climb up the wall, but at least she's practiced that to some extent. I forget exactly how she gets into this apartment. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. It just says my aunt's place. She's in Florida for the winter. So I guess she has a key, or maybe there's a key hidden. Either way, not important. Anyway, they get in the apartment and they hang out and they address their wounds. In the meantime, Clint goes back to the burnt out apartment to try to recover the suit, because getting that suit, of which there is only one copy and no replicas and no cosplay in the whole world, getting that suit is super important. So he steals a fireman's jacket and helmet, and he masquerades as a fireman to go in there and look for the suit. And if you can believe it, the suit isn't there. So then he puts away the jacket again and everything, but he sees a sticker on the door of the fire truck that says NYC LARPers. Now, I have a history with LARP, not the kind of LARP they depict in this show. So as soon as I saw that, I did smirk a little bit. But apparently Clint sees this as a big clue. Even though, as we'll find out, he has absolutely no idea the significance of those words. But he sees this sticker, and now it's a big clue to him. Okay, so anyway, Kate calls mom, and they start discussing, because, Kate was at the party that mom was at, and then Kate can't be found after the party where there was the big explosion and the fire department and the shaking and everything. Mom isn't sending out like every one of her security business employees to find her daughter on the off chance her daughter's been injured or something. No, they just kind of talk on the phone. Everything's fine. So now Hawkeye is grousing because of the wonderful things he does. Because Kate decided to run around in the Ronan outfit, Clint felt compelled to chase after her, which of course takes time away from his children and his Christmas with his children. So he's all angry about that too. And so they have a little scene here where he corrects her on how to properly dress a wound so it doesn't get infected. If this was supposed to be some sort of heartfelt bonding moment, it felt a little shallow. That's all I got to say. And Kate mentions the whole clock tower. Now, again, if I missed it, I don't know if Kate ever mentioned to Hawkeye prior to this what happened at her college, because this show just did not keep my attention most of the time. So, but I remember when I saw this scene and I heard her say that, I thought, is he going to have any point of reference for what you're talking about? Or did I miss a conversation? That stuck with me. Anyway, so then Clint decides to do some research on New York City LARPers. And it just happened to be the case that in the time since the fire department arrived at the fire and Clint got back to the apartment and rebandaged Kate's wounds, Clint looks up the New York City LARPers Facebook page or whatever on Google and just happens to come across a video of one of the firefighters, but also a member of the LARPers organization, who just happened to steal the costume, put it on, and post a video of himself with the costume on in the time it took Clint to get back from the fire scene to Kate, have the bandage conversation, and then do research on this. And so a firefighter who has stolen property from a fire puts on said stolen property and displays it to the world on a public website. Now, given that there was a massive fire at this building, I am only partially willing to accept that the costume itself survived the fire. And it is not impossible that a fire department or firefighter would be so stupid as to do something like this, but it's all very convenient. Anyway, so Clint has his automatic clue as to where the suit is or who has the suit. And so, yeah. Anyway, so then Clint has to deal with his kids because his kids are still part of the plot. Remember his kids? So he tells the kids, hey, I got something I got to do. I'm sending you home to your mother. I'll make it home for Christmas. I promise, kids, I'll make it home for Christmas. I just got to like spend a day or something doing this thing and everything will be fine. Yeah. So then the news report about the old grandpa being killed gets on the news, and then they start talking about the suit and everything. And he's like, you're going to stay here and stay out of sight and stay safe until I find this suit. Never mind that the tracksuit mafia knows Kate's name and already has a grudge against her, whether she's the real Ronan or not, for having disrupted their theft at the auction house and then also beaten the hell out of all of them. But no, she just has to stay safe. And as soon as he gets that suit, everything's done. Okay. So Kate's like, yeah, well, I'm totally not going to stay here. So she comes with him. To go where? Well, back to New York so we can have some more kibitzing between the two of them, quote unquote, character bonding, character building. Kind of, not really, just sort of back and forth banter. She criticizes him for having bad branding. And he's like, I'm not in it for the glory or anything. And she's like, we have bad branding. He's like, I'm not selling anything. He said, but you have bad branding. He's like, okay, what am I selling? And she's like, inspiration, Clint. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, he takes her back to her mom's office building, or where her mom's company is, Bishop Security, and drops her off. And he says, this is, if everything goes right, this is the last time I'll see you, because I'm going to go find the suit, get the suit, and then I leave. Even though you're still a wanted 22-year-old from a Russian tracksuit mafia that still knows your name and still has a grudge against you, but that's your problem. I'm just going to get my suit and then take off. And so they exchange phone numbers because reasons. He says, in case of an emergency. And I'm like, you mean the emergency of a Russian mafia coming after her and sometime in the next 24 hours when you've already gone home to your family for Christmas and she'll have nobody to help her? Like, what? Anyway, so she goes up to her mom's office, and mom is there with Jack. Okay, now, mom, within this scene, is aware that there was a fire at Kate's apartment last night. Mom doesn't worry for her daughter, doesn't care that daughter was in danger. When she found out there was a fire and hadn't heard back from her daughter, she didn't immediately call her to find out if she was okay. None of that. Nope. Didn't happen. Anyway, so they start having a weird conversation given the circumstances, since there was an explosion and a big robbery in the last night, and this guy's father or grandfather or whatever he was, uncle, is now dead, murdered in his own home by a stabbing, no less. And he starts rattling off some preparatory stepfather stuff to her about relationships. She's testing our new dynamic. She both desires my approval, yet wants to set firm boundaries. She feels threatened by me, and you know what? I completely understand. I bought a book about being a stepdad. Again, it's just like, this stuff might work if it was funny, but you have to have the right setup for it. And this doesn't have the right setup for it. None of this makes any sense given the circumstances that have brought us to this point. The murder of a family member, an explosion at a party the night before, a fire at your daughter's apartment over which you seem to give no care for or curiosity as to what happened. And we start having stepfather transition jokes. And it's all very awkward. And they agree to have dinner together that night. And so Hawkeye goes off to find this. Apparently, they just happen to be having a LARP event, the organization that the guy's a member of that has the outfit. And so he goes up to a sort of Renaissance fair / fantasy LARPing event. And he gets confronted by, he sees the guy with the outfit, so he knows that it's there and the guy's there. And he gets confronted with this lady who's a total gatekeeper, who's like, you can't come in here unless you're a LARPer. And you can't come in here if you're a looky-loo, or as we in the LARPing community call a mundane, you can't come in here. So you have to follow all the rules. And Clint's like, I just want to talk to that ninja and then leave, okay? And she's like, no, you can't. You gotta wait until the LARP is over. And he's like, when's that? Midnight. He's like, I can't wait that long. I have to get to my plane to get back to my kids. What do I gotta do to get in there? Even though everybody knows that he's Hawkeye. She recognizes him. I know who you are. Like, holy cats. Why not just... Anyway, so he agrees to basically join the LARP, and he gets handed a super duper awesome prop of a scroll that has his mission on it, his character's mission, which never comes up again and is never detailed. But I was just wondering, like, damn, I want to know what his mission was supposed to be. And then they give him instructions about like hitting people, and you get one free shot as a newcomer. And also you can't leave without putting on this outfit, this silly plastic chainmail, plate mail thing, and a wooden sword. They just give this to him. I guess they just have spares there for, the newbies. Anyway, so he goes off, and we have this slow-moving montage of him having fake combat with all of these LARPers, and it takes minutes and minutes and minutes. And finally, he gets to Ninja Guy, and Ninja's guy is like, I know who you are, and he's like, you need to give me that suit back. And he's like, well, dude, you need to kill me first. Or I let me kill you because you're Hawkeye. If I kill you, I'll be like a legend. And so he makes a deal with Hawkeye. He will give him the suit without any kind of conflict if Hawkeye will let him kill him in the LARP for cred and clout. And admittedly, Hawkeye's like, and I fought Thanos. Again, I don't know what it is about this show so far, but the humor just does not land. I mean, they are ridiculous situations, but I don't know. I can't claim to know what the correct alchemy is to create a funny scene or a comedy show or something, but this just hasn't worked so far, because there's a lot of themes going on with this character that don't make sense for the situation. Clint Barton at this point is a mass murderer. He is on the level of a Punisher-esque character. He lived 5 years thinking his family was obliterated, and they were. He lost his best friend on an alien planet that she self-sacrificed after he was willing to kill himself on the off chance that that might bring his family back, because he had done so many terrible things. He didn't feel his life was worth living anymore, and yet had to watch his best friend die. The humor and this character do not click for me. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just picky like that. But anyway, so we jump back to Kate, and Kate takes a call from a police detective who's like, hey, there was a fire at your place last night. And she's like, yeah, I kind of know that. And he's like, okay, well, I want to talk to you. And she's like, oh, now's not really a good time. Okay, well, I'll talk to you tomorrow morning, right? She's like, okay. And how about tomorrow morning before work? And she's like, yeah, okay, I got to talk to the cops because something happened and stuff. Then we jump back to the LARP, and we're in the grand arena for the big battle, the big important battle between Hawkeye and costume ninja stealing firefighter, because, you know, firefighters steal stuff from fires. Anyway, so then they start fighting, and this goofball and several others start making clinging noises as the swords strike each other because, you know, nerds. And they fight and they fight and they fight and they fight. And finally, he allows the guy to quote unquote kill him. And we burn the corpse. And he's like, what? And nothing happens of that. And then Hawkeye's packing up his stuff. He's got the costume finally. Everything's fine. This guy's name is Grills. Will we see him again in the series? I don't know, but they take a lot of time to set up these two guys meeting each other. So if we don't see this guy later on, I'll be surprised. Anyway, back to the Barton household, and Clint's like, I'm going to miss my flight, and I promised I'd be home for Christmas. And she's like, well, you've got 5 days to get here. Yep. So he puts the suit in a locker somewhere, because why wouldn't he take it with him to make sure it doesn't go missing again or something after he just risked his life to get the thing back? Okay, anyway, so he puts the suit in. Now, here's the other question. Why hasn't Clint asked about the sword yet? Why hasn't Kate told him about the sword yet? I don't know. Never came up. Just didn't. Anyway, so yeah, he's not going to make it on time as he wanted to, and he promises his family he'll get home when he can. Back to dinner with Kate and Jack and Mom, and more sniping between Kate and Jack because she suspects Jack of maybe having something to do with Grandpa's death. She at one point brings up, I forget if it was here or back at the office building. Anyway, she brings up one point, the inheritance. Now, the inheritance was mentioned between Jack and Grandpa back at the auction, but it was between the two of them, and it didn't feel like he said it loud enough that Kate would have overheard it amongst all the other people in the wine cellar, but somehow Kate has a notion about the inheritance. That didn't click for me either, but there you go. Anyway, so they keep having back and forth. She challenges him to a sword fight, a fencing fight, because he mentions about sword play. And he's like, oh, okay, you know, fine. We'll have a little friendly competition, I guess. And so they get all ready and they start fencing. And as they're fencing, Kate keeps winning. But Kate senses that this guy's holding back. And she's like, stop letting me win. Stop letting me win. And he's like, no, 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 no. You're the, state champion or whatever. And they're fighting and fighting and fighting. And she's like, stop letting me in. You're lying. You're lying about who you are. You're lying about everything. And he's like, I'm an open book. And she takes a swipe at him that he doesn't see coming. And he expertly blocks it without even looking at it. And she's like, you're a liar. You're lying about who you are. Now, yeah, so that's all a big fight, etc. She takes off her fencing outfit and all that. And they're fighting and they're fighting. And then Jack walks back in and let's see, is it here or was it another scene? No, it's got to be here. Let's see if I find it. Yeah, so there's some more banter. And then Jack offers her, can I get the frame? Come on, there it is. Jack offers her a butterscotch. You remember the butterscotches from the murder scene of Grandpa? The butterscotches that had, the monogram on there? Oh my God, this is a huge clue. Why is it a clue? The guy was his family member. He might have been to the guy's house for legitimate reasons and just happened to have some of that stuff on him. But Kate sees this, and from her, physical reaction and everything, we can tell she automatically thinks this guy killed Grandpa. Did he kill Grandpa? I don't know. But we just have to have that butterscotch show up as super clue. Anyway, Hawkeye, I think where is he? He goes back. So he knows that the tracksuit mafia are still a problem. Thankfully, he hasn't suddenly forgotten the fact that the tracksuit mafia will be a threat to Kate. So he goes back to, I don't know where he is, but anyway, he's standing outside in the open, waiting for the tracksuit mafia to show up. And they do. And I forget exactly what he did to instigate this happening. But anyways, the tracksuit mafia shows up and kidnaps Clint. And then Kate is like, hey, Clint, I really need to talk to you. Something's going down and things aren't right. And I think maybe my stepfather, is a murderer and everything. And then because she has Clint's phone number, she back traces the signal from his phone number to where he is with Bishop Security, the app, I guess. Now, being someone who is practically a Luddite in this day and age and who has a dumb phone, I have no idea how accurate a scenario this is. I know you can track someone's cell phone to a certain degree. I don't know if simply having their number allows you to do so. But either way, comic book movie, there you go. So she tracks Clint's phone. And where's Clint? Well, he's being held hostage in this storehouse. There's a lot of jokes made about the warehouse being all clunky. And the guy's like, I worked really hard to find this warehouse. And Clint's like, look, I just want to talk to your boss. Can I talk to your boss? Oh, by the way, I've already taken myself out of my shoddy bonds. And they're all like, oh my God, guns blazing, or guns out now. Oh my God, you got out of your bonds and there's like 20 of us standing here with guns at you. Oh no, you're a big threat. And they keep asking her, where's Kate Bishop? Where's Kate Bishop? And he's like, I have no idea who you're talking about. Who are you talking about? I don't know who that is. And then there's like sounds coming from the ceiling above them. And then all of a sudden, crash, boom, Kate Bishop falls down onto the floor. And she's like, oh, hi, guys. What's going on? And then Kate Bishop is also now captured. And they're tied to, kids' toys. And she's, I'm just trying to help. And he's like, yeah, you've done a great job. And then guy from Van Helsing goes off to find, I guess, the boss, because they had mentioned at one point that she would want to see them. Who is she? Well, she is this character. And who is this character? I'm not sure. I think it might be, what's her name? Echo or whatever. There's another Marvel character that's going to be introduced in this show that also already has her own spin-off planned. I think her name was Echo. Anyway, it's a long, complicated story in the comic books. I have no idea what her relationship is to this situation, but if I remember correctly, she's a mute character, I think. Either mute or deaf. I'm a little fuzzy. It's been a while. Either way, our gang boss leader shushes out Van Helsing guy. We had a close-up of her eyes, and that's the end of the episode. So, thus far, I am not all that impressed. The relationship between Hawkeye and Kate Bishop falls flat. The humor consistently falls flat. The logic of people's actions as just human beings, like, unless mom is a Skrull, and maybe she is, her complete, absolute lack of care or curiosity for her daughter's safety over the course of these events is remarkable for its inhumanity. And again, this is the Hawkeye show, and we spend 80% of the time with Kate Bishop. Kate Bishop has the apartment. Kate Bishop is the guardian of Pizza Dog. Pizza Dog appears for no reason, is now part of the show for reasons I don't know. Anyway, yeah, there you go. That is the first 2 episodes of Kate Bishop from Disney Plus. Will I review future episodes? Probably. I'm a sucker for these things, even if they're bad, even if they don't click for me. Episode by episode, maybe it'll improve. I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. Anyway, that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you all have a good Thanksgiving, if Thanksgiving is your thing. There will be a TED Excellence tomorrow night on Thanksgiving night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, where we will learn about the language of social justice. We're going to have a vocabulary lesson, everyone. Get ready for it. I'm excited. You should be too. But until then, everyone, again, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, those of you that might have been here lurking, because I don't think I saw anybody in the chat, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everyone who donated, this is Kyle. I'm looking at you. Thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. I hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.